Thank you, sirs. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2015 CFL Head Coaches Press Conference from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Bonjour et merci de vous joindre nous aujourd'hui. My name is Paul Senra, the Director of Communications for the CFL, and I will be your MC for today's event. We're, of course, joined up on stage today by Coach Chris Jones from the Edmonton Eskimos and Coach Rick Campbell from the Ottawa REDBLACKS. A quick aside, as many of you know, these are also the two gentlemen nominated for this year's AGF Coach of the Year Award, which for the first time will be awarded at the Shaw CFL Awards tomorrow. Tomorrow, one of these gentlemen will be going home with the Coach of the Year award honors, but of course, they're both aiming for something much higher, and that is, of course, the Grey Cup. So the process today is going to be, can I just get Chelsea and Garrett to put up their hands? So that's Garrett on this side. Chelsea, where are you? There we go. So we're going to jump directly into the Q&A portion of the event. If I can just get you folks to put up your hand, indicate what your name is, the organization you're from, and please who the question is directed to, and maybe both or one gentleman. So we're going to get to it. Terry?
Terry Jones of the Edmonton Sun. I'd like both of you to answer the question. You've been here, I think, 5 times, Rick, and what is it, Chris, 8 for you. Can you just speak to the difference between coming here as a head coach as opposed to a defensive coordinator or special teams coordinator, or whatever you were?
Yeah, I know one difference I was just talking to Chris earlier about is we actually have some position meetings going on right now because we practice first today in the morning, so that I'm doing this instead of that. It's definitely different from me. But I think you can still, I think you appreciate this whole process, and I'll be back with the team here when I'm done with this.
I kind of agree with Rick. I mean, used to I didn't care what time meetings were, what time the bus left, and now all those questions are coming to me, and it's kind of a little bit of a headache.
Chris, hi. Steve Simmons, Toronto Sun. Can you take me back to Montreal and the apartment that you shared with Scott Milanovich and the late nights with the legal pads trying to push holes in each other's offense and defense, and how much of those experiences got you to where you are now?
Well, we had a good time. You know, he's what I consider one of my best friends, and again, we spent a whole lot of time, and we'd get to talking, around 9 o'clock, thinking we're going to get into bed early, and he would present a question, and the next thing you know, it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So he's a brilliant guy. I mean, him and Dave Dickinson are two of the guys I look at as one of the guys that I've been around offensively that really challenged me, and so it was just a really, really good time during my football career to be around Scott during that time. I know we had a TV about this big. We had a big dry marker board, but our TV was about this big. So.
For Chris Jones, hello. My name is Jim Morris. I work for CFL.ca. Last week you discussed with Purcell's about coaching and some advice. Can you talk about how that relationship developed, and have you talked to him this week, or have you gotten any more, Bill Purcell, any more advice from him for this week?
Well, I mean, he and I talk, I don't know, about once a month or so. I'll text him. I give him a hard time about not being able to return a text, but he gives me, when I have questions, I know it's somebody I can bounce ideas off of. He and Don have been real good to return my calls, and Paul Jones, who's our personnel director, he and Coach Parcells have been, close friends for years, and Paul put me in touch with him before right when I first took this job, and wanted to just go, kind of pick his brain, see what things that he felt like that he did well, and that way I could maybe incorporate them into what we did, and so that's kind of how the relationship spawned from there. Well, I haven't spoken with him. I left a message for him. I've not gotten a return call yet.
Yeah, we'll go right here.
Cam Cole from the Vancouver Sun. Rick, your dad won one Coach of the Year award, I think, in his career. If you were to win this one, you'd have as many as him. Does that seem in some way incredible to you? And could you just speak about what it's meant to you and whether it's been all good or some negative to carry the Campbell name into the CFL coaching ranks.
Well, it sounds like a good deal to me. I don't even have to win the Grey Cup, and I get to win Coach of the Year. And then he won it 5 times in a row, and he won it once. So I guess the standard was pretty high back then to be the Coach of the Year. Whoever wins, Chris is very deserving. He's had a great year too, and very honored to be nominated for that award. I'm sure Chris would say the same thing, as we're focused on the big prize at the end of the week. I'm proud of who my dad is. He's a CFL lifer, been around the league a long time in a lot of roles, and obviously a great guy you can learn from. At the same time, I'm just trying to be my own guy and be my own coach. I learned a lot from him, more so from a personal standpoint over the years on how to treat people and all that. At the same time, I've had a lot of experiences in this league with a lot of different teams, and I'm just trying to be my own guy and try to win football games.
The back.
Rick, Mitch from Global News here in Winnipeg. How much do you remember from the '81 Grey Cup when your dad was coaching Edmonton?
More so from highlights and stuff. I believe I was 10 years old then, so when you're 10, you're 10. But I remember Dave Cutler kicking the winning kick, all those things, and hearing stories from old Edmonton players and all that stuff. And, exciting game. It shows you how hard it was. That Eskimo team to win 5 in a row is pretty impressive because, it's tough to win football games.
Matt?
Coach Campbell, Matthew Shinetti from TSN. You spoke about this, Coach. You spoke about this last week, the by design way that you put in the family atmosphere, the time you took to make sure that the players understood their role, the coaches understood their role. This is the second year of the team's existence, and you're in the Grey Cup. Have you taken a moment to maybe ask yourself why, or be surprised at how quickly it happened?
Well, we stated at the beginning of the year we wanted to find a way to, as a second-year team, to find a way to get into the playoffs. And if you can find a way to get in the playoffs, then anything can happen. When I interviewed out in Ottawa with Marcel, when I was fortunate enough to interview, to me, to win games, you got to have talent at this level. The guys got to be talented enough to do it. But also you need some good guys with some character, and the locker room is really important, that you walk into that locker room and they're all together. And when the locker room's right and the coaches and the players are all on the same page, good things can happen, and that's what we've got going on right now.
Here.
Coach Jones, Andrew Buckles from Yahoo Canada. What I have to ask you about is, you're obviously famed for what you've done as a defensive coordinator before you became a head coach. Now you're a head coach. How much involvement do you still have in your defense from week to week, and is it as much as you want?
It's myself and 3 other guys. We basically put our defense together. It's not my defense. It's not my team. It's ours. Everything we do, that's the way we present it. And so I call the defense, but it's with great input from all 3 of the guys that I work with.
Yeah, in the back there. Sean?
Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet. Rick, I'm just interested in your thoughts on Henry Burris, the amount of energy that he has, the way he's able to play at the age he does when most guys his age would be long retired.
Yeah, there's some of those guys that are different guys like Calvillo or Damon Allen or Warren Moon, or there's many guys. Well, not a lot of guys, but there's a few of them that can play till 40 and into their 40s, and they just seem to keep going. And the other thing that's impressive about Henry and those guys is mentally they're still into it. When he comes into work every day, you can see he's enthusiastic. He loves the game. He's excited about it. I'm also happy for Henry too, because we took some flack last year, which when you win 2 games, you should. That's part of pro football. When you don't win, you're going to take some heat. But his approach this year and last year is no different as far as his work ethic and all that type of stuff. So happy for him that he rode out a few storms that we had to go through last year and was able to have some success this year.
Matt again.
Coach Jones, I was going to rephrase that question. Where does Henry rank amongst the quarterbacks that you've schemed against? how difficult is he to scheme against, even and particularly at this age now?
Well, I mean, he mentioned some of the guys that I've gone against before, you know, the Calvillos and Damon Allens, and he's kind of a combination of both those two guys because if you remember Damon, he had the escapability, the ability to throw off the back foot. He had the pump where he could take his hand off the ball and the ball could go all the way around and he throws the ball down the field. So he's a lot like Damon in that way. But Jason's done a tremendous job with him this year, and he's become where he can get the ball out. He knows where to go with the football, and he's always had, you know, had that confident smile and the demeanor and all that, even when he was in Calgary with me. So to me, he's like those two guys. He's kind of a mesh between the two.
We'll go to Gary.
For Gary Lawless from TSN. Over here, Chris, please.
Where you at?
Right here, man.
Okay.
To the right.
Right here.
I can't see you.
It's hard to see up here.
I need my sunglasses.
All right. Anyways, you don't need to see me. You had the 3-week bye before the Calgary game.
Yeah.
How much scouting and prep did you do for Ottawa/Hamilton during that period?
Well, we knew, you know, we hadn't played them since the first third of the year. We played them, you know, early in the season, and we knew that they were going to be in. So we, you know, went ahead and as far as pecking order, we put them in first in the East because we knew that they would be in the finals, and so we did our breakdowns for them at a much earlier time than we did the other two teams, and so we had a leg up. Quite honestly, we thought they were going to win the whole time. I mean, because they were playing with such great confidence, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They're solid in all three phases, but when Henry gets rolling, I mean, he's hard to stop.
The same question for you, Rick, about were you able to do a little pre-scout and pre-game plan for Edmonton during your bye?
Yeah, same deal. We were fortunate to have that bye week, which gave us some time too. But no, we spent time making sure, number one, we got ready for Edmonton because they finished in first. But we broke down Calgary, BC. You do it all. Chris knows this. You've been around football for a long time, and football coaches can kind of be nerds where they sit in their office forever and just watch film and break down games. And so we had it all ready to go. And then once we saw that Edmonton had beat Calgary, we were in full mode on Edmonton.
To the back.
Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. Just a question on this weekend. Sorry, we're on this side. Just a question for both you guys heading into this week and how much buzz there's going to be around town. What's your message to the players and heading up to the game? You know, with all that's going on in the city, and they'll be the center of it.
The difference between winning and losing the Grey Cup. I mean, if you win the Grey Cup, you're a Grey Cup champion forever, and you'll remember it forever. So that's where you want the focus to be. Is that you're here first as a football player. We're not going to discourage our guys from interacting with some fans, and enjoying the process, but it's got to be about football, and we still have adequate time for meetings and practice and to do all the things we need to do. And to beat anybody, especially Edmonton, which is a top-rate team in this league, is we're going to have to be fully prepared. And our guys have been good so far in understanding that there's a big difference between winning and losing the Grey Cup, and so you want to be able to put your best foot forward.
Up here. Go ahead.
We took the same approach. I mean, we told them we actually flew in a couple hours early yesterday just so the guys could go out and get a bite to eat at a regular hour and not be rushed around like normally you are at most of these events. And so, and I told them, I said, you assume when you're young that a lot of things are going to happen over and over and over. There's no guarantee that you'll ever be back at this moment, so enjoy the moment. But with that being said, I told the coaches to make sure that they're, PR guys and whoever it may be that, we flew in on a plane, that there's planes going out. So if you act the wrong way, we can fly you home.
Move up here.
AJ Jakubek, TSN 1200 in Ottawa. For both of you guys, it seems like both teams are playing their best football second half of the season. What's been the big difference in the second half, which has been better since earlier when you met in July?
Go ahead.
Well, I think the biggest thing with us, I mean, we didn't get off on a real good start. The first game of the year. I mean, Scott and them came in with a real good game plan, and they ran pick wheel and got us with a big play, and then they had an offensive push-off on Pat for a touchdown, and so it gave them some points. And, we didn't start, and then Mike got hurt. And so anytime you play with your backup quarterback for, about 8 weeks, there's some bumps in the road. That's the one thing I can say that I'm proud of this coaching staff. I'm proud of our players. The fact that they stayed the course, they believed in what we were doing, and we were able to win. I think it was 6 of them ball games, and that's what allowed us to weather that until we got Mike back. And then you speak of, it's pretty easy and common denominator, kind of like with Henry playing well. When your quarterback plays well, you have success, and Mike's playing at a high level right now, and when we got him back, we started hitting.
A couple things for us is we basically had a whole new receiving group there, and all those guys had played in the CFL, but not necessarily together. So for Henry to have time with those receivers over the weeks, just to develop that chemistry, and with the new offense and all that was a big help. I also think our running game's been good. William Powell's been a very good player for us. Both him and Jeremiah Johnson have helped out as well. And then our defense, we got a lot of younger DBs that last year was their first year in the league, with the exception of Javon Johnson. And the more they got to play together and the more they saw things, that was a big help. And then I think every year a football team is about getting the locker room right. And by that I mean developing a chemistry where everybody's playing for each other, coaches and players on the same page, and playing for each other, and that only develops over time.
We'll do Gord and then Steve.
Gord Holder from the Ottawa Citizen. First a question for Rick, but the same question for Chris. You have some players who are eligible to come back from injured list of one kind or another. Are you more likely to assess them through the week and determine whether they'll be able to play on Sunday, or to ride with the lineup that has won the last 5 games, or in the case of Edmonton, the last 9?
Our rule is we're going to field the team that we think gives us the best chance. So I've talked to you earlier in Ottawa that we don't expect a lot of changes, but we're going to make sure whoever's playing's completely healthy and ready to go. I see minimal changes, but we're not going to be hesitant to make a change or two if it helps us.
Well, we had 6 changes, I think it was, last week, and we had some guys that came back off the injured and things of that nature after the bye. And this week, you got Simeon is the only one I think that's kind of still out there that's in question. And I'm not going to put Simeon out there and risk him if he's not. If I don't feel like he can be 100% or at least close to 100% and protect himself and play like Simeon's capable, he won't play.
Chris, over here.
Yeah.
Right here, in front of you.
Yeah.
Steve Simmons, Toronto Sun, right here.
Yeah. Oh, hey, man.
What's it like to coach in a league that's this small, where players on virtually every team you're coaching against? You have coaches on almost every team that you've worked with in one way or another. What's that like?
It's fun. It's competitive. You don't really think about it. Sometimes you don't even think about it until you get to the game and you're out, getting a workout in or whatever for the game, and then you see them and then you remember, the work weeks are so busy, and Rick, I'm sure, can tell you the same thing. The work weeks are so busy that you don't have time to really think about it a lot until like right before the game, a Pete Costanzo will come up and say hello, or a John Murphy, or whatever. And so that's, that's kind of the way it is, But it is fun to compete against them, going against Dave Dickinson, going against Scott Milanovich, going against Jason Moss. It's really, really fun. It's really competitive. It's like playing on one-on-one hoops.
We'll do Penton and then Naylor.
Kirk Penton here, Winnipeg Sun. Just wondering who a couple of the coaches are who had the biggest influence on your coaching careers and are a big reason why you're sitting in those chairs today.
I know for me, I'm fortunate to have worked with some guys that have lasted a long time and won a lot of games. I was fortunate to work with Don Matthews in Edmonton. Was fortunate enough to work with Coach Huff in Calgary. I was at the University of Oregon before I came up to Edmonton, and Coach Bellotti and Coach Foster and some guys down there. A lot of people that I have a great amount of respect that people that can stay in this game for a long time and win in this game over time, because it's not easy to do, and there's a lot of people that come and go, but the guys that can stay in and do it and win over time, there's a reason, and there's a good reason to listen to those guys, because they have a lot of good advice. And looking back, one of the best years for me is when I coached with Chris in Calgary one year. I went to the offensive side of the ball for a year, because I had done special teams, been a D coordinator for a long time, and I wanted to look at things from all angles, like when Chris talks about having those conversations with Scott or Jason or Dave or those guys. It's always good to look at things from the opposite perspective.
One of the guys that I've learned a ton from is on my staff, Philip Lally. He was one of the first guys to give me an opportunity to coach. Gave me one of my first jobs down at North Jackson High School down in Stevenson, Alabama. And he taught me a lot about, just organization, having a plan, making your guys be physical, make them, feel like they're a little bit better than what they are, and then certainly when I was around Don, he taught me about this particular league. Sometimes you learn what to do, and some of the things you learn what not to do, quite honestly. And that's what I've tried to go everywhere I've gone, with Huff, organization. I mean, he's one of the first guys in the building every single day, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter what day of the year it is. I mean, you can have your end of the year meeting, some kind of end of the year Grey Cup dinner, and the very next day he's in there at 5 o'clock in the morning. And so it taught me a lot about organization. So I just tried to I've been real fortunate to be around some really, really good folks. And like I say, just try to find what to do and what not to do.
Dave? One sec. Dave? Go ahead, Naylor.
Yeah, Dave Naylor, TSN. A couple questions for Rick. Rick, this is, I think by most people's estimation, a surprise that you guys are here in year number 2. What strategy do you have, or do you think you need a strategy for making sure your players don't subconsciously have a happy to be here approach to this game?
We've talked about this whole season being a marathon of going and trying to run to the finish line. And we said when you get to the finish line of the marathon, there's the crowd gets bigger, there's a lot more cameras, all that stuff, paying attention, but the recipe for winning doesn't stay the same. I think we got enough coaches that have been around this league long enough, and players that have been around this league long enough to understand the difference, but the feeling of winning the Grey Cup and the feeling of losing the Grey Cup. And doing everything you can, like Chris said, these opportunities don't come around very often. Sometimes a rookie guy might say, this was easy, I'm going to play in the Grey Cup every year. But the older guys let them know that you want to make the most of this opportunity. And we really do best for us when we worry about just getting prepared and playing football, and the other stuff around. You kind of got to keep the blinders on and try to keep focus, which I can't right now because it looks like a car is going to drive into me on the highway.
Question for you, Rick. This is your first Grey Cup week as a head coach. Of course, your father had 5 pretty successful Grey Cup weeks around the late 70s and 80s. Have you talked to him a little bit about Grey Cup week, and just could you tell us a little bit about your football relationship with him?
He's pretty hands off. I guess I got more of it through osmosis over the years. He has advice, and he's my dad. We have a good relationship. But if you know him or know his personality, he's going to say you just keep working and grinding away and do your thing. And that probably the best advice is to be yourself, is that you just keep working away, keep grinding away, and see if you can find a way to get it done.
Chris Jones, Gary Lawless from TSN. How much of Scott Milanovich's offense or Mark Trestman's offense do you see in what Ottawa and Jason Moss are doing right now?
Well, I think that you see it on both sides. I think some of what we do and some of what they do certainly is some of the stuff that they did there in Montreal and had success with. So I would say a large portion. I mean, as far as what percentage, I mean, he'd be the best person to ask.
Just a heads up that we've got 4 minutes left.
Chris, hello?
Yep.
Terry Jones, the Edmonton Sun here. Can you discuss the extent you've grown as a head coach, particularly in terms of dealing with us? We've just witnessed to this point how engaging and seemingly relaxed and enjoying this you appear to be compared to, you know, those 2-minute interviews in the first game or two. Can you just discuss how far you've come that way?
Well, I mean, like Rick said, I just try to be myself, but at the same time, I mean, I've got to be guarded because of some of the questions that are asked, right? I mean, so it's, you know, this is a big game. You know, the way we approach it, as far as team-wise, we just approach it game by game. You know, and it's not about me, it's not about Rick, it's not about, you know, Rick's dad and what he did. It's about this game. It's about our players. You know, and all the history's all fine and good, but it really comes down to how well prepared we both are. And as far as, you know, me dealing with the media and that type of thing, I mean, I look at every day as a chance to try to be a little bit better than what I was the day prior.
Chris Jones, Jim Morris again from CFL.ca. On your team, you have two younger players on each side of the ball, John Ojo on one side, Darnell Walker on the other. They've both made a huge impact to your team. Can you just talk a little bit about the two and what they have brought to your team?
Well, first of all, I mean, those are two quality character young guys. I mean, you never have to worry about them reading their itinerary and being where they're supposed to be. They're always going to be exactly where they're supposed to be. You know, one of them's from a little old small town in Texas, and the other one's from Tallahassee, Florida, and both kind of country kids, you know, and they certainly have had an impact. I mean, they tremendous athletes, you know, 40-inch verticals, and both run, you know, 4.4s, and I mean, all that physical stuff. But like I say, more than that and more than the stats, each one of them would do anything they can do to win this game. And put themselves second or third or last in order to do that. They don't worry about their stats or anything like that.
So I lied. We don't have 4 minutes left. We're going to take a few more questions at the very back.
Bob Irving of CJOB in Winnipeg, over here, Chris. Can you just talk a minute about Mike Riley and Darius Bowman and just what they mean to your team, what big factors they are in every game before I turn it over to Terry Jones for the penultimate question?
Well, I mean, certainly they're two of the leaders on our team. You know, they both work extremely hard. I've known Darius since he was, I don't know, 8th, 9th grade in high school over in Notre Dame High School in there in Chattanooga, and a buddy of mine coached him, Charlie Wiggins. And I mean, and I'm proud of how Darius has grown. You know, he's grown over the years. You know, he's gone to a couple of different teams up here, and he's grown into the leader that he's become. You know, Mike is certainly the guy that, you know, he's the engine. I mean, he's the guy that makes things run. He's in there early. He stays late. He plays hurt. Like I say, I mean, he will do everything. He's like the two guys I mentioned earlier. I mean, doesn't matter if he throws for 67 yards at Hamilton or whatever it was. As long as we win, that's all he cares about.
Danny?
Rick, right here in the back, Arash Madani with Sportsnet. You'd mentioned that the playoffs were the goal this year. That's likely 8-9 wins that you have to get there. At what point of the season did you see a 2-win team becoming an 8 or 9 win team, having that kind of potential? And at what point did you think there's a legit shot we could be here playing for a championship?
An important game for us was the first game of the year at Montreal, going on the road, and it was a game that was in the balance in the fourth quarter. And I try to be honest with the guys. I mean, you always say you're going to go in a game and get after people and do all those things, but the reality in pro football is a lot of time the game's going to come down to the second half, and just learning how to and believing that you're going to find a way to get it done in the second half or in the fourth quarter. So that game, we would have lost that game last year or the previous year. This year we won that game. And then also it was big learning experiences, like going out to Edmonton and going out to Calgary. We didn't have good days, but we were able to rebound the next week, and I think that's part about being a good team too. And our guys did a good job too of just kind of focus on week to week and taking it one game at a time, and those experiences helped us a lot.
We'll take a couple more. Terry, I know you want the last one, so anyone else? Steve?
Chris, over here, right here, front row.
Where you at?
Right here.
Where does your aggressive nature come from? You know, you don't often see a coach in a playoff football game go for 2 on the first touchdown scored or do the kind of fakes that you do. You seem to have a penchant for that kind of football.
You know what? I mean, I think it comes from when I was in high school ball. My high school coach, we were, you know, very aggressive, and I mean, we put the pads on every single day and hit every single day, and I think that's probably where it came from. I mean, just want to win, you know. I mean, you look at, it's not very hard. I mean, you look at Calgary. I mean, they're the one team that goes for 2 more than any other team, and so we scored the first touchdown. So in order, you know, odds are they're going to score a touchdown, so I better go for 2. I'm going to be behind by 1, right? So I mean, that's a pretty simple little equation as far as going for 2. You know, I mean, and we were against the wind on the first kick, and so I was like, you know, what do? We're going to kick this ball and then give them a chance to get a return if we did miss it, or do we sneak it for a yard or 2 and, you know, and try to play great defense? I mean, that's, I mean, some of that stuff is more just, you know, it's kind of right there for you to look at. But as far as aggressiveness is concerned, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just my nature, I guess. I mean, I've got a glowing personality if you ask Terry, you know. Well, I mean, certainly, I mean, Don, I mean, you know, I mean, he had a chance to be around Don, coach with him. I mean, you know, his was, I mean, we went cover 0. We were 10-0, and we went, you know, cover 0 in BC Place and brought weak side hammer pressure, and they went slide protection with Damon Allen. He threw it, went 109. I can't remember the receiver's name, but went 109 to beat it, and we were up 4, you know. I mean, so that's where I figured out that, you know, you do what you do, and you don't worry about what anybody else says. You just make the decisions that you feel like that you got to do to win the football game, because like he said, it ain't easy.
Anyone else? Going once. I see you, Terry. Going twice. All right, Terry.
This is known as the Jim Hunt Memorial Question. That's been asked at every Grey Cup going back longer than I've been around. And both of you being in your first experience in those chairs as a head coach, I would like to know your philosophy and your plans to tell your team about what you think, how they should they have sex at the Grey Cup or not?
Well, it's my job to put guys in the best position to have success, whether that's on or off the field. So I guess I'm going to give advice more than a policy, and this would probably apply to most of our players and coaches, is that, and it mirrors our football team this year, is that the odds aren't good, and no one gave you much of a chance, but if you pay attention to detail and you execute and you do it with zest and enthusiasm, anything can happen.
How can you top that, Terry? I mean, again, I mean, I was told about the question possibly this morning, and you know, it kind of caught me off guard. Again, I mean, I can't. I'll just have to reserve the things I'm gonna say about our group, because I know the way they live. What's that? Yeah, exactly. Next question. Next question.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This now concludes our formal press conference. Merci les deux entraîneurs. Thank you to both coaches for your candor for the last 30 minutes. On behalf of all of us in the room, thank you and good luck on Sunday.